I've never had 23 people at 6 o'clock on the dot before. Are you ready, Ilya? Ladies and gentlemen, and assembled company, welcome to the World Storytelling Cafe. And tonight is a very special night. We have the amazing Dave Tom, but not only Dave, he's accompanied by his minstrel, Trevor J. And he is about to tell the story, Gawain and the Green Knight. Can the curtains part? And can Dave and Trevor step forward, please?
Well, good evening, everybody. Are we on full screen? Can you see us all right? Hopefully someone will put us on full screen in a minute. Oh, look at that, fair and fine. You can see all of the effort we've gone to now. We're baking with all of these candles. We really are. Well, just to say who's who, if you've not met me before, I am Dave Tong, storyteller, sometimes known as the Yarnsmith of Norwich. And this fine fellow there with the lustrous grey locks of an elderly badger and the wanton face of a wayward stoat is Mr. Trevor James, otherwise known as the minstrel extraordinaire. And tonight we've come to tell you a tale of Sir Gawain. Some people now call him Gawain. Long ago, he was also known as the Hawk of May. That name aside, this story doesn't take place in spring nor summer. Rather, it takes place in midwinter, long, long ago. Once, when fairy-haunted bower and barn and dragons slept soundly in their caves, Arthur, King of the Britons, King of the West, he was keeping Christmas at Camelot. There he stood upon a raised dais, surrounded by his kin. But to his left sat his beautiful wife, Guinevere, as fair as a May morning. To his right sat his nephew, Gawain, a young knight new to his uncle's court, who drew his strength from the sun as Guinevere drew her beauty from its rays. For many days and many nights there had been much feasting and merrymaking, but now it was late on New Year's Eve. On the low all around still laughed and made merry loudly. Arthur stood stock still and listening, alert to every sound. For although the years were beginning to weigh heavy upon the old king, still he craved adventure and was hoping for some New Year's magic this night. Fair or foul he cared not, only hoping that it would offer itself up to his court that night. Quietly at first, so only the ancient king perceived it. The distant clatter of horse hoof upon cobblestone, the horses' hooves kicking up sparks that flashed like lightning, that heralds a coming storm, getting closer and closer, louder and louder, louder now than the trumpets, the drums, the merry din of Arthur's hall. As then came the thunder, as Arthur's great oak door of his hall, it split and splintered beneath iron-shod hoof and vicious blade. And in burst a strange and terrible rider, more giant than man, seated upon a mount that would have put any of Arthur's war horses to shame. He was long and mighty of limb. He was broad of shoulder. He was bare of foot. He was strong of arm, and he had two huge hands. In one of those hands he held aloft a holly bough, to signal to all in Arthur's hall that he meant no harm that night. Yet still many gathered in Arthur's halls, they quaked at the sight of him. For in the other he grasped a cruel axe. The strange stranger was slim and supple of waist. A finely fashioned fellow was he, and yet he bore a strange and terrible complexion, for that he was many shades of green. His long, silken plaited hair, his big bushy beard were green. The cloak he wore, the tunic and hose, they too were green. Yet his clothes were adorned with many rich decorations, emeralds and other shiny baubles. So too his horse, for whilst the bold beast and its tack were also green, its garb and other finery were embroidered with birds, butterflies and bees. Whilst golden thread, golden wire was twisted into the horse's mane and from its tail. Golden wire which flashed just like the glint in the corner of the Green Knight's eye and from the edge of his wicked axe. Cocksure, the great Green Knight, he rode up and down the full length of Arthur's halls, past rows of knights and ladies, looking at each in turn with a mocking eye, staring deep into their eyes, yet snaring now as if he found each man in turn wanting. And then he spoke. I have come not to fight with you this night, nor to feast with you, Arthur, but simply to make some sport with you. For the new year is upon us, and I seek a New Year's game. For all I want is a simple exchange of New Year's gifts. A strike for a strike, a blow for a blow. And he who can match me, he who can wallop as well as I, he shall win this axe. It shall be his to wield as he wishes. All who had fallen silent in Arthur's court that night, they remained silent, their heads bowed low. Even the flames in the fire, they were reduced to a hiss as they shrunk back at the sight of the strange and terrible man. Arthur's pride was pricked. He grew angry that none of his warriors, that they would take up the challenge. He leapt to his feet, wearing their shame as if it was his own, meaning to strike the blow himself. Well, oh, know this, my friends. If Merlin had been there that night in Camelot, if he had been part of this story, then perhaps the sage old wizard would have whispered wise words of counsel in the old knight's ears. And perhaps then Arthur, he would have struck at the great knight with the holly bow, the Green Knight striking back with the same bow, neither man suffering no more than a few pricks from the holly's barb, before laughing long, loud and lustily into the night and sharing many a cup of wine. But know, my friends, that Merlin was never part of this story to my knowledge. And so there was no one there to temper Arthur's rage. And so it was he took hold of the Green Knight's axe, ordering that he kneel, that his head would be the price of bringing dishonor on Arthur's court that night. But up jumped Gawain, fearing for his uncle, wishing to prove his own virtue over blood, wishing to prove his own courage over kingship to the king. He stood forward, he kneeled before Arthur, saying, "Beloved uncle, nay, my sovereign lord, I beg of you, please let this moment be mine." And so it was. Gawain took up the axe. He bowed low to the Green Knight, showing him all due reverence that one good knight should show another. The Green Knight returned the bow. He dropped to one knee, offering his neck, saying, "Strike. Strike now." Gawain needed no further telling. He heaved the axe heavenwards, bringing it down hard, so hard it cleaved the stones beneath, as the Green Knight's head fell from his shoulders and rolled about the floor, whilst ladies, and I have to say that some of the knights as well, they screamed loudly and climbed upon their benches, all desperate to get away from the head as it rolled about and laid back up at them. But so too the Green Knight, he blundered to his feet, lumbering and lurching, knocking all asunder, until stooping down he picked up his own head by the hair, blood still gushing from the vicious wound beneath, the eyes opened and fixed upon Arthur's nephew. And then he spoke. "Be sure to keep your oath to me, Gawain. A strike for a strike, a blow for a blow. Although know this, our game will not end this night. Instead, seek me out at my abode, the Green Chapel, 1 year from this breaking New Year's Day." And then, still with head in hand, he mounted his horse and he rode screaming from Arthur's hall. All who had fallen silent in Arthur's halls that night, they remained silent, their heads bowed low, until King Arthur, he bellowed with laughter. Long, loud and lustily did he laugh. For the new year was but newborn and had yet to cry out, and yet he had witnessed the magic he had craved. He slapped Gawain hard upon the back, telling him to set his hard-won axe aside and to enjoy some wine. For after all, his quest was 1 whole year away. A sad and mournful tune for my friend there. For is it not an unhappy truth that the older we get, the quicker time passes? And I look at no one particular on screen here when I say that. Just know that for Gawain the year galloped by. He awoke each morning regretting his hollow victory, and with each passing day he felt older than his young years. For Gawain, lean winter quickly gave way to hopeful spring, but quicker still came the bounties of late summer, making all except Gawain forget the cold, dark times that had been and gone, only to return again soon enough. For soon enough there was a waft of wood smoke in the air, heralding autumn's return. And Gawain's mood grew as dark as the short, darkening days of the season. His heart grew as grey and as grim as the grim grey days breaking without. And on All Hallows Eve, a feast was held in his honour. There he sat, already clad in armour, the trimmings and trappings of a knight. He ate, he drank his fill. Although no, this was to be no celebration, for no one expected Gawain ever to return. The following morning he took up his sword and a shield, a gift from his uncle, and a fair and fine shield it was too. For in the inside was a picture, a lovely painting of the Blessed Virgin Mary, whilst on the outside it was emblazoned with a golden pentacle, the 5-pointed star, the endless knot, an ancient symbol with many different meanings to many different people from many different lands. Although to Gawain it represented the 5 knightly virtues of generosity, purity, courtesy, compassion, and honesty. 5 virtues that a knight must keep if he is to be successful in his quest. He mounted his horse, Gringalet, already rigged in fine apparel and ready to ride, and he galloped off alone from Camelot. Gawain travelled north, although skirting the very west of his uncle's realm, riding into those dark places where few strangers ever trod, wending his weary way between gnarled and knotted tree, hacking, cutting, slashing, fighting his way through the cruel and twisted thorns that lay behind. For his journey, his quest was a grim one, for none he asked had ever heard tell of the Green Chapel or the mighty man who dwelt therein. And he was forced to do battle with many a foul foe, from brutal bear and boar to wild woodwose and wicked worm. He fought and slew them all. Although know that a far harder enemy to defeat was Mother Winter, for she gnawed upon his bones. Mother Winter, she wrapped herself around Gawain like an icy cloak. Her long, bitter fingers reached inside him, tickling his ribs, chilling him to the bone. As each and every night he lay out beneath the stars on cold bare rocks with only his armour and shelter for protection. His heart growing as hard as the cruel stones that made up his unkind mattress. Know, my friends, that Gawain, he became the most mournful of men. As on and on he rode, each day slumped over the neck of his horse, whilst carrion crows and other bedraggled birds perched upon the bare black branches above his head, and they piped piteously as Gawain passed by. On and on he rode, no longer caring which way he went, no longer knowing where he was, only half remembering the nature of his quest. As on and on he rode, each night he would kneel before the image of the Blessed Virgin upon his shield, praying for deliverance. But no help came. On and on he rode, until one night, late at night, he felt certain that he could hear distant music being played upon a pipe. The music, it stirred something in Gawain's heart, rousing him from his nightmare, gifting him back his reason. It wrapped itself around horse and rider, drawing them closer and closer to a commanding crenellated castle that was tall of tower, that was stout of bright white sturdy stone. It was set upon a rocky cliff face, yet overlooking a beautiful valley. And Gawain, he recognised carols and other Christmas tunes being played upon Christmas Eve, and he was made welcome. For this was the castle of Sir Bertilac, a massive man who was as wide as he was tall. Imagine that. He was red of hair, he was ruddy of face, and he wore a smile as broad as a lesser man's shoulders. Imagine that. But he was a good-natured knight, and all the happier knowing that he was to keep this Christmas with a knight of Arthur's Round Table. He ordered that Gawain be bathed and dressed in the finest apparel that his wardrobe could muster. And when, and only when, Gawain was well rested, was he brought before Bertilac and his beautiful young wife. Perhaps, thought Gawain, even more beautiful than Guinevere. Certainly the other side of a newly minted coin. For whilst Guinevere was fair, Sir Bertilac's wife, her hair was as dark as a raven's wing. Her skin, it was as white and as bright as morning milk. And she put Gawain in mind of the first frosts of autumn. For after all, a dusting of silver upon the tips of leaves and grass, upon berry, bush and bough, it can bring just as much joy as the high summer sun, can it not? Such was the joy that she brought Gawain that day that he could scarce take his eyes off the young woman, for she was comely to behold, certainly more beautiful than the ancient dame who mirrored her every move, a withered old crone. Oh, Gawain was yet to see that the woman was far more ugly within than ere she was without. The Lord and his lady, they invited Gawain to keep Christmas with them. Soon he found happiness again. Soon he was laughing long, loud and lustily. The first time he had laughed that way for many months. For 3 days and 3 nights he sang, he danced, he made merry with Bertilac and his court. Although in truth, Gawain, he enjoyed making merry with Bertilac's wife most of all. And so it was that his happiness was tinged with shame, for that he did covet another man's property. Such was his shame that he quite forgot about his newfound happiness as his thoughts once more returned to his unfinished quest. He went to Sir Bertilac and told him that he must leave, for he'd yet to find the Green Chapel and the monstrous man who dwelt therein. But Bertilac, he smiled that smile that was as broad as a lesser man's shoulders. He laughed long, loud and lustily. He said, the Green Chapel, I know it well. It is an ancient place and less than 2 miles away from here. And so the old knight counselled the young knight that it was not yet time for fond farewells, inviting him to stay his hand and rest a while, 3 more days and nights in the castle to be prepared for the ending of his quest, whilst he, Sir Bertilac, and his courtiers rode out on the hunt. But worry not, lad, says he, for my wife and ladies will keep you company, and because I too am fond of a New Year's game, how about this? Whatever I win the next 3 days out in the woods, I will gladly give unto you, as long as you, Gawain, you give me all that I've won or you've won here in my castle. Agreed? Gawain agreed. Hands were shaken, backs were slapped, wine was shared, and the deal was struck. And the following morning early, Gawain was awoken by the barking and baying of hounds, the holler of many a hunting hound, as Sir Bertilac and his courtiers, they rode out on the hunt. But no sooner had they gone than there came a gentle tap, tap, tapping at Gawain's chamber door, and in crept his young wife, for she too had come a-hunting in her way. She, the huntress, Gawain, hiding beneath the sheets of his bed like a deer gone to ground, he was her prey. She passed over to the bed as silently as a moonbeam, and with tears welling in her eyes, she begged Gawain not to leave, for that she had grown fond of him. She feared for him. And was he not a kind and courteous knight? And should not a kind and courteous knight do all that a lady asked of him? For not only should he not leave, she hoped that they may be as one that day. But for all Gawain wanted to please her, he could not break his oath to go to the Green Chapel. Although it hurt his heart to hurt her, although it hurt his heart to send that beautiful lady away from his chamber, he told her that soon he must go, and so now must she. And so she made to leave, but only after she'd taken hold of Gawain and gifted him a kindly kiss to remember her by, a kiss upon the cheek. That night, Sir Bertilac arrived in triumph back in his halls, carrying a hind upon his shoulders, one of many deer that had fallen beneath the hail of arrows that day, the others already butchered, already hacked and hewn, bound and bundled for the pot. He cast its corpse upon the ground, saying, "Behold, Gawain, my friend, my gift to you, all that I have won in the woods this day. And now, Gawain, you must give me all that you've won here in my castle." Unwittingly, the young man stepped forward. Embracing the old knight, the master of the manor, he kissed him once upon the cheek. And even though the old knight wished to know from the young knight from whom he had won such a wonderful gift, Gawain would not say, for that was not part of their bargain. The following morning early, Gawain was awoken by the barking and baying of hounds, the holler of many a hunting hounds, as Sir Bertilac and his courtiers rode out on the hunt. But no sooner had they gone than there came a tap, tap, tapping at Gawain's chamber door. And in crept Bertilac's wife, for she too had come a-hunting in her way. She, the huntress, Gawain, hiding beneath the sheets of his bed like a ball gone to ground, was her prey. She passed over to the bed as silently as a moonbeam, and with tears gathering on her cheeks, she begged him not to leave, for she had grown to love Gawain. She feared for him. And was he not a kind and courteous knight? And should not a kind and courteous knight do all that a fair lady asked of him? For not only should he not leave, she wished that they might be as one that day. But for all Gawain wanted to please the young woman, he could not break his sworn oath to go to the Green Chapel. Although it hurt his heart to hurt her, although it hurt his heart to send that willing and wanton woman from his chamber, he told her that now she must go, for soon so must he. And so it was she made to leave, but only after she'd taken hold of Gawain and gifted him 2 kindly kisses to remember her by, one upon each cheek. That night, Sir Bertilac, again he arrived back in his halls in triumph, carrying the head of a wild boar upon his shoulders, the only one he'd slain that day. For the brutal beast had put up a hard-fought fight, with many an arrow breaking upon its tough, unyielding hide, before finally it fell victim to the edge of Bertilac's blade and the tearing teeth of 100 hounds. He cast the head upon the ground, saying, "Behold, my friend, my gift to you, all that I have won in the woods this day. And now you, Gawain, you must give me all that you have won here in my castle." Unwillingly, Gawain stepped forward. Embracing the master of the manor, he kissed him twice, once upon each cheek. And even though the old knight asked the young knight from whom he'd won such a wonderful gift, Gawain would not tell, for that was not part of the bargain. The following day he was awoken by the barking and baying of hounds, the holler of many a hunting hound, as Sir Bertilac and his courtiers rode out on the hunt. And no sooner had they gone than there came a more urgent rapping at the chamber door, and in crept Sir Bertilac's young wife, for she too had come a-hunting in her way. she the huntress. Gawain, hiding beneath the sheets of his bed like a fox gone to ground, was her prey. She passed over to the bed as silently as a moonbeam, and with tears spilling onto the covers, she begged him not to leave, for that she had grown to desire Gawain, and still she feared for him. And was he not a kind and courteous knight? And should not a kind and courteous knight do all that a lady asked of him? For not only should he never leave her, she begged that they should be as one that day. But for all Gawain wanted to please the young woman, he could not break his oath to go to the Green Chapel. Although it hurt his heart to hurt hers, although it hurt his heart to send that slim and supple creature from his chamber, he told her that soon, very soon, he must go, and so now must she. And so she made to leave, but only after she'd taken hold of Gawain and given him 3 kindly kisses to remember her by. One upon his cheek, the third more passionate upon his lips. And only after she'd given him another gift, the simple girdle, the green belt from around her waist, a love token for Gawain to remember her by. Although at first he would not take it, for he had nothing to give in return. But this morning, young Gawain, he would be far more easily swayed when she told him of the simple gift's true power. As long as you wear this belt, hidden beneath your robes, beneath your armor, says she, and tell no one you have it, not even my husband, your host, then no harm shall ever befall you. As long as you wear this belt beneath your armor, you shall not be killed. And so it was, Gawain took the gift. For why shouldn't he meet the Green Knight's magic with just a little of his own? Well, that night, Sir Bertilac arrived back in his halls, and before he could speak, Gawain embraced the master of the manor. He kissed him 3 times, once upon his cheek, the third more passionate upon his lips. But he did not give the old man the green sash which remained hidden beneath his robes. Bertilac looked deep into Gawain's eyes, as if searching his very soul, before stepping back and casting down the tattered remnants of a fox. For it too had fallen victim to those 100 hounds. They had torn it limb from limb. Behold, Gawain, says he, my gift to you this day. It is Reynard, a creature of little virtue, for it is a cruel and cunning creature. It is full of deceit. It is a miserable match for all that you have gifted me this night, for all that I have won in the woods. And now the old knight wished to know from the young knight from whom he had won the gift of the 3 kisses. Although Gawain would not say, for that was not part of their bargain. But Sir Bertilac did not care. He smiled that smile as broad as a lesser man's shoulders. He laughed long, aloud, and lustily. But knowing this was to be Gawain's last night in his castle, he feasted him more finely than on any night before. They danced, they sang, they ate and drank their fill. Yet for all those shared cups of wine, I'll tell you now that Gawain, he slept little that night, for on the morrow he must surely face his doom. He rose early, before dawn, and with one of Bertilac's servants to guide him, Gawain, still with the sash hidden beneath his armour, wrapped twice about his waist, he rode out past moor and snow-covered mountain. He rode through wild and wicked woods, until finally they came to a narrow and twisting path where the servant would go no further, he telling Gawain not to go that way, for many a knight had travelled that road, never to return. But Gawain, he would not wear the name of coward. And so the servant wished him well, turned his horse and was gone, leaving Gawain to his fate. For at the end of the twisting path was a mound of green, surrounded on three sides by ragged rocks and moss-strewn sturdy stone that rose up high into the murky mists which settled there, whatever the season. This was a chapel like no other. And from a great crack, a ragged rent in the back of the rocks, Gawain could hear the scraping of steel against stone, the sound of someone sharpening an axe. He called out, "I am here, I have come." He dropped to his knees, offering his neck, just as the Green Knight had done 1 whole year ago. As that mighty man, he came striding from the cave, wielding another wicked axe, far more cruel even than the cleaver that Gawain had won from him 1 whole year ago. He bowed low to Sir Gawain, showing him all due reverence that one knight should show another. As Gawain called up, "Strike, strike now." The knight needed no further telling. He swung the axe high. But Gawain, he glimpsed the blade as it flashed in the morning sun, and he flinched but a little. And so it was the Green Knight stopped short. He berated Gawain, calling him coward, mocking him, calling him a feeble, a frail fellow, little better than a beardless boy, a brat, not yet ready to leave his mother's knee. "I flinched once," says Gawain. "Know that I will not flinch again. Strike now." For a second time, the Green Knight swung the axe high, bringing it down, but he stopped short, leaving the axe hovering just above Gawain's neck, as this time he commended the lad for his courage, saying that he was a fearless, feisty fellow, for that he did kneel as still as the stone that surrounded him, as still as a great stag oak that was rooted deep, deep, deep into Mother Earth. But Gawain grew angry. He said, "I certainly have courage enough to kneel. Tell me, do you have courage enough to end our game? Strike now." For a third time, the Green Knight, he heaved the axe heavenwards, bringing it down hard, so hard it cleaved the stone beneath. Although it passed just close to Gawain, catching the very edge of his neck, so that a small droplet of blood welled in the wound and drip, drip, dripped upon the axe still embedded in the stone. And Gawain leapt to his feet, already with his sword drawn, standing firm against his foe, saying, "Enough, our game is at an end. A strike for a strike, a blow for a blow. And so know this, if you strike again, strike true, for I shall surely strike back at you." You see, my friends, young Gawain, he had a way with words when he wanted to. And some of you are smiling there. A couple of you are even laughing, which is a great coincidence. For the Green Knight, he began to laugh long, loud and lustily as he leant upon the axe, still embedded in the stone. He smiled that smile as broad as a lesser man's shoulders. And before Gawain's eye, his complexion changed from green to red. "Fear not," said the knight, "for it is I, your friend and host these many nights past, Sir Bertilac. And it was I who came to Arthur's court 1 whole year ago, sent there by the ancient dame who shadows my wife, for she is none other than Morgan le Fay, your aunt, and a witch who wears dark magic about her, as you or I might wear a winter coat to keep out the worst of Mother Winter's wicked winds. She sent me there to make mischief, to bring Arthur low. Although in truth, I only wished to test your readiness to become a knight. For know, young Gawain, it is not enough for a warrior to be brave. He must be generous, pure. He must be courteous, compassionate. And above all, he must be honest. And I do not think that you, boy, were as honest as you might have been. For on the first night of our game in my castle, you gave me all that my wife gave unto you, the kindly kiss upon the cheek. And for your truthfulness that night, well, I allowed you a moment of cowardice, a flinch on this breaking New Year's Day. On the second night, you gave me my wife's 2 kindly kisses. And for your truthfulness that night, again, I stopped short on this cold winter's morn. But on the third night, Gawain, although you gave me those 3 kindly kisses, you did not give me her green sash. It still remains hidden beneath your armour this day. And know, boy, that for your deceit that night, I nicked your neck with my axe. Sir Bertilac's words shamed young Gawain. They hurt him far more than the fresh wound upon his neck. For it was true, he had not kept to his part of the bargain. Reaching beneath his armour, he pulled off this sash, he cast it off, he offered it back to Sir Bertilac. Although the old knight would not take it, saying that Gawain had been punished enough, that he could go forth without blemish or blame upon his name. But he had certainly proved himself to be a brave and courteous man, to have been so kind to the old knight's young lady, to have resisted such temptation, and to have come there to that terrible place to meet such a terrible foe and fate. Keep the green sash, says he, and go in peace. And so it was, Gawain, he thanked the old man for his many kindnesses, and he rode out from the green chapel alone. And when at long last he arrived back at Camelot, Gawain told his uncle, the king, the very same story that we have just shared with you this night. And Arthur, he laughed long, aloud and lustily, for he loved a good story well told, as we hope that you have enjoyed our version of this ancient tale this night. Hopefully you have. And know this, Arthur decreed that from that day forward, all of the knights of the Round Table would wear green belts wrapped around the outside of their armour, to remind them of their duties as knights of the Round Table, but also to honour the Gawain. A reminder that there were none as courteous, that there were none as bold as he. Go on, my friend, you know you want to. Well, thank you all very much for listening to our stories and music. We hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget the virtual hat, because you can see, look, he's steady as a rake. He's reading. Remember our books, My friend has a CD, as do I, and he also makes those little bow pixies if anyone is interested. So if you've got any questions, stay behind afterwards and by all means chat to us. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
That was amazing, Dave.
Fantastic.
That was.
Warm, the candles don't help.
Brilliant.
Yes, and if you're looking for the virtual hat, go to the site. Whatever you're watching on, go to the website. You'll find the hat. We can't take Dave and Trevor to the bar to buy them a drink, much as we would love to. Being a lover of fine ale himself, and I'm sure Trevor is. But you can give him the means of buying one himself next time he passes an ale house.
You know what? I'm happy with a cup of tea, but I wouldn't say no to the coin.
Well,
Thank you
that's
very much.
fantastic.
Did you all enjoy that story?
Yes, fantastic.
Yes.
Absolutely brilliant. Superb. Thank you.
Thank you.
I don't know what happened to the bagpipe at the end. It kind of went into its own little world. So apologies for that.
I've been
Well, the music was brilliant.
That's live music for you.
Yeah.
Nice to hear live music. Hey.
Yeah, it was lovely. Thank you.
Do we have time for any
Fantastic
questions or
combination.
anything, John?
Pardon?
Do we have time for any questions or anything, John?
We've always got time for questions. Always got time for questions. Or you can just say hello to each other.
Hello.
I'm sure there's people here you haven't seen for years or haven't seen each other for years.
I'm going to tell you something. I'm going to let you into a little secret. Not only is my friend here a technophobe, he's actually a Zoom virgin. So I'm going to just while I go to the kitchen and chuck another log on my range because I promised him a pizza before he goes home tonight.
Hey.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Trevor, someone did ask on the chat, what was the first instrument you played?
It was me.
Bagpipe. Bagpipe.
No, no, the
Oh, the little pixie.
the one that's little. Yes, yes, that.
That's my. Can you see it?
Yeah.
That's my pixie. It's a bowed psalter. You can only bow it because the strings are so close together, as opposed to the big one which you can pluck. Go on, take my style, don't you?
I will.
A bowed psalter.
This is bowed, yes. It's. I don't claim it to be a medieval instrument at all. It's just something Dave and I are lucky enough to do, or have been lucky enough to do, the Robin Hood Festival in Sherwood Forest.
That's where we met.
For the last umpteen years.
Wow.
Usually we perform from a tent, but this particular year they wanted me to do a bit of wandering around the paths as well.
Right.
So I've got various pipes and bits and pieces I can shove into my bag, but I wanted to see how small I could make a psaltery
Yeah.
that would slip just inside, if I can get hold of it without knocking anything over. I made a little sleeve for it, and it just slips into there.
Oh,
on the shoulder.
fantastic.
So it
Wow.
works really nice. It's got 12 notes. It's just one octave, but it's got full sharp. So you. So it just depends what note.
Yeah.
How many instruments can you play?
I don't know, actually.
I was going to say, we do a story walk in the woods.
No,
We
it's
do
gone.
Twilight Tales, and when it's getting dark, and
Yeah.
that you're surprised how that travels through the woods. It's
Oh, yeah.
absolutely
Yeah,
magic.
yeah. It's got a
And it-
beautiful glistening sort
Yeah.
of sound, doesn't it? It's
Yeah.
shimmering, eerie. Yeah.
And we have to end up
Oh.
carrying all of his instruments for him. Now he's getting old. Now he's got the grey locks. in the back of his head. It's the same.
I can't rise to that.
Don't rise to it, mate. No. You know I love you.
I know where you live, Dave, but I don't know where, well, approximately, but I don't know where Trevor lives. You don't live near Sherwood Forest, presumably.
No, I'm in Beccles in Suffolk, just about
Ah,
12 miles away from Dave.
the
something like
big
that.
festival, the big Sherwood Festival, when it goes on, it attracts performers from all over. And so you get to meet all sorts of weird and wonderful folk there. But yeah, you're an interloper in Suffolk now.
Yes.
So he's technically still a stranger. And if they find out he's actually spent the evening in Norfolk, they won't let him back in.
It's all right. I took the guards away from the Waveney tonight, Dave. Just.
Oh, that's
yeah.
good.
Yeah, I bribed them to go down the Cambridgeshire border.
The unofficial king of Suffolk, aren't you, my friends? Yeah.
So it's like Yorkshire and Lancashire.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Suffolk is better.
Do you know what? Suffolk people are like Norfolk people, just not as civilized. What can I say? And obviously, that doesn't count for John, obviously.
Well, we never claimed to be civilized, Dave.
That's how I come to
that.
Anyway,
I just think of us all as East Anglians.
You know, that's a good idea. Yeah, does that count Essex people? Are Essex East Anglia? Because I'm never sure. Come on, Jack, you're from down in Essex, aren't you?
Well, I live in Essex, but I'm not an Essex girl, you know.
Ah, true.
Well, I always think rather like Wales is the lump that sticks out on one side of the UK. East Anglia is that lump that sticks out on the other. So I always think of East Anglia as being from the Thames to the Wash.
Yeah, that makes sense. That sounds good to me.
Because it's a good lump, isn't it? You know, and it's like the two ears that stick out either side with nothing in between. Sorry.
We're not all East Anglians, we're Lumpians, by the sounds of it.
Who is he?
Well, it's been fantastic, Dave. You know, I mean, we're so lucky. You know, I mean, Dave has been with us at the cafes really since the beginning in March. And he's been involved right through. Well, we've had so many fantastic people on, and we're still getting them. We've got someone who's never been on before tomorrow, Rob Cloney from Canada at 2. Brilliant National Day tomorrow, and then Georgiana from Romania in the evening for a live session. You can come back to that for a live session. So there's all sorts of stuff. Just look at the schedule. It's on Monday night we've got a magazine where we're looking at, Justin Demir is leading a whole discussion on stories beyond spoken language. So how people who can't understand language properly can actually enjoy stories by all the different senses. So we're exploring that on Monday night, and of course we've got an ongoing series from Chip on Kingdom 1000, which is a very exciting project. So and it's been such a privilege. I don't know about you, Dave, but it's been such a privilege being part of this cafe, hasn't it?
It's been really lovely, and it's been nice to do something different with Trevor, because a lot of what I do are comic stories. It's always lovely to do something a bit more meaty with my good friend, especially since we couldn't do Sherwood. It's just nice for us to be able to get together and meet, obviously, other storytellers as well, and a fine audience. And we're hoping that if we're still going at Christmas, which we might well be at this rate, we'll come back and give you our Sir Cleege and the Christmas cherries. That's another
Wow.
Thing.
That's something to look forward to. Thank you.
And we're still managing social distance as well.
We are, yeah.
Well, I mean, that's one of the things that we're that we've loved doing on the cafe, is just provide a platform where people can experiment with things. And because it's possible, we don't have to persuade someone to book us for £1,000 or even 1,000 pennies or even 5 pence before we're allowed to experiment. And really the person to thank for that is sitting there is Mike and his wife Lucy, who set this site up in the first place and have given this fantastic platform.
It's brilliant because you can go worldwide.
We have. I mean, we've had. Brilliant. Well, I've got people I can see on the site, Bob, and people that we've got our first Australian tellers next Sunday. So we're doing a 10 o'clock in the morning live session, because otherwise we'd have to get the Australians up in the middle of the night. So we start next Sunday. We're starting our first Australian session.
Wow.
It was. We were trying to work out how we could squeeze that consonant in without them being totally insomniacs.
Thank you, John. Thank you.
Recharging.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, thank you both again. Big round of applause for Dave and Trevor.
Thanks very much. We
Yes,
hope you
thanks,
enjoyed it.
John. Thank you.
It's a work in progress, but you got the first cut.